Hello everybody, my name is Mikel Angelo and welcome. To just kind of get this started off, we are going to clear the weapon. It's already been unloaded, right? So if you look here, completely empty, no magazine. So to kind of preface this, first off, sorry about the lighting. If you look at this SIG, it looks like the X Carry. It is not the X Carry, and you can tell by the trigger here. I don't have the flat face trigger, and on top of that, it's not full size. Well, I don't know if the X Carry is full size, but point being is that I originally bought the SIG with the Sig P320C, right? With the medium size grip module, and then when the X Carry came out, I bought the X Carry grip module for my P320, and I've been really happy with it. So a couple of other things that we need to kind of go over before I start actually talking about this gun. The first thing is that before this gun, I've only shot 4 other guns before, and none of them to the same extent of this P320. So those 4 guns were the Glock 19, the Beretta 92, the Koenig TP9 SF, I believe, the baseline Koenig, and a Ruger P90. So all of those guns are the only semi-autos or autoloaders, or whatever you want to call them, that I've ever fired, and none of them to the extent of this P320. With all those other guns, I have maybe shot 100 rounds through all of them each, because they weren't mine, they were a buddy's. This is also my first SIG, and this is also the first handgun I've ever purchased. Obviously not with this grip module, but with this one. And with that being said, you have to take my review with a grain of salt with that. Also, on top of that, I'm not going to comment on the accuracy of this weapon, just because one, I'm a newer handgun shooter. I've shot long guns before, but I'm a newer handgun shooter, so there's that. And then 2, my first 1,000 rounds were through this grip module, and my second 1,000 rounds were through this one. And if I were to say that yes, the SIG P320 was more accurate as I went along because of quote unquote break-in, that would be actually inaccurate, because one, when you switch to this grip module, it's clearly larger, right? And it's more square, and it kind of resembles the X5 grip module a lot more, whereas this one's a little more bulbous, right? And I don't know, maybe it could have just been this grip module, but personally, my accuracy was pretty consistent with this. I was hitting 10-inch steel at 20 yards pretty consistently with this handgun, and for me that's good enough. When it comes to like the whole is this weapon drop safe, I never dropped it. I never really tested it to find out, but the way I saw it, for me anyway, is that out of the videos that I did watch about the drop safety issue, is there was this one video, I don't remember who made it, but in order for him to get the gun to go off, he had to take a mallet to the back of it to get the weapon to set off. And the way I see it, there is nothing in my lifetime that I can see myself doing where I would have to use that much force on that specific point of the gun to get it to go off. Now, you guys can argue with that all you want in the comments, but for me personally, that the whole drop safe thing is a non-issue for me, just because I don't plan on hitting the back of my gun with a hammer, nor do I plan on dropping the gun in that exact spot with that exact amount of force. Is it possible? Yes, but in the 6 months, six months that I've been carrying this weapon, I have yet to drop it, or it has yet to fall out of the holster or anything like that. So I'm not that worried about it, and I'm really good about retaining my firearm, and I do that with a shameless plug, a Black Arch holster. So this was actually my first holster and my only holster for this gun, and it is fantastic. You can check out Black Arch if you want. This is the only holster that I own from them, but I do really love this holster, and it was really cheap. It was like $40 or something like that. So there is that. Now, to continue on with the gun itself, this gun has taught me 2 things. One, high bore axis does not matter. I guess maybe in competition shoots it does matter, but in the sake of concealed carrying or just range time or practice in general, high bore axis doesn't really matter. And 2, the second thing that this gun has taught me, specifically this grip module has taught me, is that outside of comfort, I don't really have a reason to not carry a full-size handgun anymore. So the difference between I believe, well, I'm not going to say the X5 because the X5 is very different from this weapon, but the difference between the P320 full size and the P320 compact, excluding so with this grip module, is that so if you have this grip module attached to this gun, the P320 compact, right, I believe has 1 inch less at the bottom and then 1 inch shorter at the slide. And then with the full size P320, which I believe that this height is 6 inches, and then the full size length I believe is either 7.5 or 8 inches, and I believe this one is sitting at 7. Again, I don't know the exact statistics for the firearm. If you're willing to carry something around this size, you might as well just carry the full sized one and just kind of skip it. And with at least with the P320, since it's modular, it doesn't really matter because you can swap them out at any time anyway. But if you're on the fence between carrying compact and full size, for me personally, like this, at least in appendix carry, is very comfortable. The grip does print, but it doesn't print enough for people to notice, and at least no one has openly said anything. And honestly, I'm not really that worried about it. I go to a university, and in that university, the college kids are so nose deep into their phones that they literally walk right into me. Out of the 2,000 rounds that I put through the SIG, I've only had 2 malfunctions. The first malfunction was in the second round, right? And I believe it malfunctioned because of the ammunition, right? The first 50 rounds that I put through this handgun was steel, just to see if it was willing to eat steel out of the box. The only thing I did with this gun out of the box was I took it apart. I made sure there wasn't any excessive burrs or like loose metal shavings or anything like that, and to make sure it was actually oiled. And once I saw that all of that was okay, I didn't oil it or anything. I just put the weapon back together. I went out to the range and I started shooting steel ammunition to see how well it handled it. Obviously, it didn't handle it well because it jammed, malfunctioned, jammed, whatever you want to call it, the second round in. Cleared that malfunction. I added a lot of lube, and then I was good to go. So for the rest of that 50 rounds, I was good to go. The second malfunction that I had was, I believe, my fault. So the SIG P320 is ambidextrous. You have the slide stops on both sides, right? And just like a lot of people, when I was aiming the gun, I feel like I was pushing up on that slide stop, so that way when the gun went back, the slide stop caught, and there was that. So I don't think that was really a malfunction. I think that was just user error. The only real complaints I have about this gun is probably its weight, right? In comparison to the other guns that I've fired, this gun's pretty heavy. It's very, very top heavy. You definitely feel the weight of this slide, especially in comparison to this grip. It is very heavy, but at the same time, it's also practically a full-size gun, so you just, you got to keep that in mind. I eventually plan on picking up a P09 sometime this fall, and I'll definitely do a compare and contrast between the two guns. They're of similar size, and the P09, from my understanding, is bigger. So we will see how that goes. I personally do not like this grip module. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the way it fit in my hand, or like it, for me, like at least a medium grip module, it feels very like bulbous, I guess would be the best way to put it. This grip feels very bulbous. And with that being said, that's the main reason why I don't like it. With the X-Carry grip, it is more blocky like a Glock. And I personally believe that the stippling, the texture here, if I can pick that up on camera, there we go. The texture here, I believe, is a lot better than on the stock. I mean, they feel similar, but this is definitely much more coarse. Now, when it comes to rubbing up against my stomach, I don't know. I know one of the main complaints for a lot of concealed carry people, for at least the MNP 2.0, is that the texturing is really aggressive. And my answer to that was, I'm going to wear an undershirt whenever I conceal carry. So when this gun sits in my waistline, I got one side pressed up against my shirt, the other side that's pressed up against my undershirt, and that's it. And for those of you, and again, going off the rails again, and those of you that are worried about like my undershirt snagging or anything like that when I reholster my weapon, that's not really an issue unless I'm doing multiple dry fire draw repetitions where my undershirt comes really loose over time. But for the most part, outside of that, my undershirt never gets caught. And the main reason for that, now, I don't know if this is really considered incorrect, but for me, I feel like this is the safest way to do it, especially since this gun does not have a safety whatsoever other than the trigger pull. What I do is that I actually take the gun, put it in the holster, and then as a single unit, put it in my pants. And then when I come home, I take it out of my pants, and then I put it on my desk. The only time this gun ever leaves the holster is before I put it in my pants, where I pull the gun out, I clear the weapon, I inspect the weapon, I reload the weapon, right? And then I also inspect the inside of the holster to make sure there's no debris or anything there. There shouldn't be, because, I mean, it's inside my waistband the entire time. But if there was, I'd be able to see it, and then, again, reinserting back into the holster and into my pants. That's essentially what I do pretty much every single day. You know, like, especially if it's windy. I live in a desert, so sand gets everywhere, and that's what I do about that. And overall, I really enjoy this gun. I would definitely recommend it to someone that wants a modular system, especially if you pick it up at the price point that I did at $400. And then I believe it actually ended up being like $470 after shipping and the FFL fee. But I mean, $470 for which is easy, I would say, like a $550 pistol, for me is definitely worth it. And now the sun's going behind the clouds and my lighting is completely off. All right, well, if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.